Fhloinn. I'm the chairperson of Kildare North Ógra Fianna Fáil, and we're delighted here to have Senator Eileen Flynn, or Flynn, to talk to us about diversity in politics and the work that she's doing. This is following on from our Diversity in Politics Zoom meeting that we had with a number of representatives from various different communities. Hi there, Eileen. How are you getting on?
Hi, Brian. Thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to young, political-minded people. So thank you.
Thanks a million for joining us, Eileen. You might just give us a brief introduction about yourself, how you found yourself becoming a senator, how you were appointed, and just some of the work that you've been doing since being appointed.
Okay, so first of all, my name is Eileen Flynn. I was born and reared on a halting site in Ballyfermot. I completed first level, second level and third level education. I did a PLC course, I did an access course, and I finally did a degree in Maynooth University in a community and youth work. Social studies I have a degree in, and I've been an activist for over the last 10 years, and basically when you're a young person, it's very tough to find yourself and to find what you want to do in the world and what your purpose is in the world. And I think every single young person in Ireland are always looking for their purpose in the world, and what can they do to make the world a better place. And for me, as a young traveller woman, I wanted to make the world better for travellers, but particularly young traveller women. So that was my passion, and it still is my passion today. And as I've said to many people, I'd mixed with good, bad and ugly, which I remember my father always referring to a film, and one of his favourite films was The Good, Bad and the Ugly. And it reminds me of myself in politics, you know, and finding my way in the world of politics, and just in the world as an activist as well. I've been on the wrong side of the fence. I've been on the right side of the fence. I've been on the fence around many a subject and many an issue, you know. And I've always been open to learning. I've always been open-minded person as an activist. So just to say that as well. And for me, Brian, it was those levels of inequality that the traveller community faced in Ireland for many of the decades, and still today is my passion for politics, and it's my passion. That's the reason why I'm an activist.
Thanks for that, Eileen. Just touching on the inequalities that members of the travelling community face, I might tackle one of the questions that we have written down here. According to the 2016 census, there are 30,987 members of the travelling community in Ireland. Why do you feel they're so underrepresented at every level of public representation, and what barriers do they face to getting involved in politics as you have?
Firstly, I believe there's more than over 30,000 travellers in Ireland. I believe that there's in about 40,000 travellers in Ireland. And if we look at Croke Park, and you take a section of Croke Park, the traveller community wouldn't even fill up half of Croke Park on a good match day, if you want to say that, or a day of a concert where it can hold over 100,000 people. So if you have that vision in your head, we're a very small community of people, but yet we are treated very illy and very wrongly in society today. And that's at every level, Brian. Unfortunately, that's at a political level, that's at an educational level, that's at a health level, an employment level, accommodation. So there's some, and also when we talk about health, we have to keep in mind mental health. Traveller men are 7 times more likely to die by suicide than men in the general population. Traveller women 6 times more likely to die by suicide than women in the general population. Every 11 deaths within the traveller communities caused by suicide. So that's, I really want to stress that today, that there's a lot of health issues within the traveller community. But going back to some of the inequalities that travellers face on a daily basis, obviously, is racism, discrimination, and that, like, we always talk about equality. I don't believe there's such a thing as equality. If you want, like, me and my twin sister are two members of the traveller community, but we're completely two different individuals. I can't straighten my left elbow, my left arm. She can straighten her left arm. So we're two completely different people, and we should be treated of equal worth in the world. And I think that's how I look at equality, is that it allow us to be different, allow communities to celebrate our difference, but we should be treated with equal value. Less than 1% of the traveller community go on to third level education due to access, due to cost. Not having the cost to go on to third level education, not having the access to third level education, and also, Brian, not seeing it normal. It's not normal for traveller people to go on to third level education. It's not normal for traveller people to have jobs. Basically, we apply for jobs. Over 80% of the traveller community are unemployed. If you look at a behaviour and attitude survey that was done in 2017, I think it was October 2017, that research was launched. And over 80% of people said they wouldn't apply, they wouldn't take a traveller on for work. Over 80% of people said they wouldn't live next to a member of the traveller community. And I think these figures are very worrying in today's world, you know, in today's Ireland. For traveller community, we always value education, we value employment, but unfortunately those opportunities are not there. You know, there's still this stigma that's out there towards the traveller community that, you know, travellers rob, don't pay taxes, are bad people in the world, and that's not the case. If we look at any community in Ireland, and let that be the settled community, the general population, there's good and bad in all communities. Unfortunately, we're such a small community that we're all targeted with the one brush, and that you know, for young travellers coming up in the world today, I feel a lot of empathy towards young travellers. And me myself, when I was you know, when I even got a degree, like my eldest sister would have said to me, get off out that island, a traveller will never be anything. Now she's in her 40s, like she's 46 years of age, and for me it was always about trying to break down those barriers and prove her wrong. But it's not about proving travellers wrong, it's about proving society that we can do this, and we should have equal access to be able to be successful, to complete education. But also a young traveller woman, actually in Ballyfermot, who was aged 13. I was working in a secondary school, and this is only recently, and she said to me, you know something, Eileen, these are her words, you're in the doll and all that, she said, but normal travellers wouldn't be able to do this, you know. And like, looking at that young traveller woman, still not having hope that travellers can be successful if we're given the right opportunities, you know. So it's all about those right opportunities, and having access to education is one point, and we all have equal access to education, yes, but to be able to be successful within the education system is very difficult. And for me myself, I was a young traveller woman who was suspended 8 times, who was, you know, the class clown, who felt that I didn't fit in the classroom I was in. And lucky enough for me, I still completed I still completed second level education, but I didn't complete it in doing a traditional leaving cert. I didn't get any top class honours or anything of the such. I have dyslexia, and basically I always say I'm a bit of an idiot, you know, but I'm very intelligent emotionally. I'm very intelligent, very intelligent, sociable as well. So we're not marked upon those levels of intelligence within the education system.
Eileen, I'd hardly say that about yourself now. I think you're top class. I've seen your work up in the Seanad. Just touching on the education point that you brought up, my mother would be a teacher and so would my father, and I'd hopefully go on to teach when I'm finished up in college. So I'd be a great believer in education is where you go first to fix issues. Just talking on the point that you made, the travellers don't go on to third level education a lot, and that creates an issue where we don't see an awful lot of teachers from a diverse background, such as the Nigerian community, the Roma community, or even the travelling community who've been here, have been a part of our shared island for how many hundreds of years. They've been here since we've been here. Do you think that there should be some sort of an initiative to encourage members of the travelling community to go on and take up teaching, and some sort of incentives so that when children from the travelling community enter into education, they see a member of their community at the top of the classroom and it can give them hope for better tomorrow? Would you feel that that sort of thing would work?
Yes, 150%. But just to say to you, Brian, that there's many travellers out there who are teachers. And unfortunately, those travellers who are teachers have to hide their identity. And I know of teachers who are in County Kerry, who are in Galway, and are members of the traveller community, and they're not openly members of the traveller community, if that makes any sense, you know. And there's people who do work in healthcare professions. My own auntie works in, she's a healthcare profession, and herself, she don't use her identity and say that she's a member of the traveller community. And she even said, like, you know, I was so proud of you, Eileen, getting the seat in the Oireachtas, she said, but everyone was talking about you in the nursing home, she said, but I couldn't say that you were my niece, you know. And I said to her, why wouldn't you say it? And she said, no, she said, because that there might get me out of my job, like, because people still do have prejudice, you know. And yes, to answer your question, I believe so. I believe that travellers should be as teachers. I believe that Roma people should be in as teachers, and Nigerian people also. I think it's very important to have diverse teachers in our schools, and to normalise diversity, and not everybody has the same colour skin, not everybody has the same background, and to be normalised. But I think what's very positive coming down the road for travellers in education, Brian, is the traveller history and education cultural bill that will be implemented, and hopefully if Minister Foley champions it, it will be implemented within our education system, and it will be taught in our schools as a subject. So I think that's an amazing starting point for young travellers, especially to go into school and to be learned about our history, you know, because even myself, when I was in school, the reason why you feel out of place is that you're not hearing anything about your history. You're hearing about Irish history, obviously, and everything else that goes with another history all over the world, but you're not hearing about the traveller community. And you have settled people then who probably would make a note or two or a comment or two around the traveller community, and it's that white settled teacher in the classroom. And I believe that it shouldn't be that way. I believe that we should have diversities within in our education system as a whole, and let that be SNAs, people, cleaners, let it be secretaries and teachers, that it all should be very diverse within the education system. Yeah.
Absolutely, and what better culture to actually celebrate? As someone who plays uilleann pipes, I've grown up hearing the legends about Johnny Doran and Felix Doran, great musicians all around. Just touching on the issues that members of the travelling community face. Obviously, over Fianna Fáil, we've got TDs who are members of our youth wing, we've got councillors, and we've got just lobbyists like myself who go forward policy and have actually influenced the programme for government. So there is a certain amount of effect, change that we can affect. What would be the big issues that you think that we should be tackling as a youth wing that could prove to the betterment of the travelling community?
There's a piece of legislation that I'm working at the moment, and personally I'm passionate about it, and many other members of the traveller community are passionate about it also, is hate crime legislation. And that will protect not only the traveller community, but that will protect many diverse communities in Ireland, and the LGBTQI plus communities also. So that's one piece of legislation. Again, Brian, getting the support. Now to date, we have got good support, and the Traveller History and Cultural Education Bill. However, it's around championing that and getting it through the next stage of the Dáil, so that there would be brilliant if we could have that support. And I believe that from my conversation with Micheál Martin, I do believe that we have got that support, and from other members of Fianna Fáil also, you know. And I don't know, not many people would like, people within the circle like I'm on about, members of the traveller community, members of the general population, that would say to me, oh, like, since I became a senator and built up relationships with many people within all the political parties, to be fair, you know, I know that that Fianna Fáil is a good political party when it comes to change, you know. And I've seen that, like, you know, even like we're one of the only countries in Europe that has a Youth Work Act, and I know that Fianna Fáil implemented that Youth Work Act, and I know as a professional community development worker and youth worker, and reading up, and even before I ever got the seat, that Fianna Fáil is really good at on social issues, you know. So for me, as a traveller woman who wants to bring around equality for everybody, but the heart of it is the traveller community, is to be supported, is to you know, local county councillors. I would love actually to see more Fianna Fáil county councillors being more proactive when it comes to issues on the ground that's impacting on the traveller community around accommodation. And I'm really open, Brian, of building up relationships. You know, for me as a senator, it's not about knocking down anyone that says anything negative. It's to approach and ask why, and trying to make that person understand and build up those relationships and find a common ground, you know. So I do know there is great Fianna Fáil councillors out there, and there's one or two that's not so great in different parts of the country, and I'd love to work with those. I'd love to work with those councillors, and to, you know, because sometimes it's the fear of the unknown. Sometimes it's, you know, we can make judgments, we can be prejudiced without even knowing some of the issues that's really impacting on certain communities in Ireland. So, and again, it's not about knocking; it's about building up a good relationship.
Absolutely, I suppose we've got a lot of councillors, but not they can't all be perfect. I know Shane Curley down in Galway was actually coming out in defence of the travelling community, when they were getting go of it on the radio over some funeral arrangements. So I know there's some great.
And like, you know, Brian, I'm not here being criticising any councillor, you know, because like I got great support from councillors and TDs within Fianna Fáil, within the election itself, you know, going back in March. That's not my problem. I could actually tell you two out of the whole of Ireland. I could tell you two councillors who are not so good, but I know that those councillors can be good, you know, and if they're open and listening and we build up that relationship, then that's a starting point, you know.
Absolutely. I suppose that old adage, the best way of solving a problem is recognizing there's one, you know, and once we recognize it, we can go about solving it. Just on a bit of a topical one now, and we've been doing a series of interviews over the lockdown, and we always have to ask, how has COVID-19 impacted on your community? Like, we've seen it affect people across the board, but I suppose the travelling community would have a unique occurrence with the COVID-19 in terms of relief, in terms of PUP, in terms of support. How do you think it's affected the travelling community? And as we go living with COVID, what can we do to support them better?
The latest figures has shown that over 400 members of the traveller community has been had COVID-19, and basically, Brian, again, that comes back to living conditions. It comes back to accommodation and overcrowding halting sites, and not appropriate accommodation for the traveller community, and a safe place for people to be able to isolate within our own community. Like, for example, in Ballyfarm at Lavery Park, but there isn't a Fianna Fáil councillor there, but I would have a very close relationship with Senator Catherine Ardara. So just to say that, and there's no, so it's not throwing out any digs or anything, just to be very clear. So in Lavery Park, there's no safe areas for any people to be able to isolate without taking people off the sites and moving them somewhere else, and not everybody. So it's a bit like taking you out of your home in Bray and moving miles up the road for 2 weeks, so there's members of the traveller community that wouldn't appreciate that and wouldn't do that, so basically it's about local authorities being able to support travellers by putting safe facilities within sites, like being able to wash their hands with hot water, being able to shower, being able to isolate. So those facilities that's in the general population, unfortunately, many travellers today still don't have those facilities. So that's something that local authorities need to do, and they need to value the traveller community within COVID-19 as well.
Absolutely, and I'm taking notes here as we're speaking. I'll see if we can address them.
Me personally, I've had here in Donegal, my husband is a settled person, and unfortunately his father's critically ill in hospital with COVID-19, and many members of his family has had COVID-19, and I've been in close contact with people with it myself, and the self-isolating, and I know that it has a major impact on people's mental health and people's well-being. But I think in the long run, it's about keeping everybody safe, and it's about doing the right thing around, and reach out to and get support if you're struggling with your mental health. Contact your GP, and I would have really advised people to do that. But COVID-19 itself is a worry for everybody, and unfortunately it's on many of our doorsteps. Yeah.
Absolutely, and you'd said about your father-in-law previously, and I do hope he gets better. Hopefully, anyway, he's in our thoughts and prayers. Just touching on the mental health aspect for the travelling community, especially with COVID-19 being such a worry on everyone, be they settled, be they from New Irish community or the travelling community, everyone's mental health is suffering. We see the facilities here in Kildare. We've got CAMS, we've got Pavee House, other things. Is there barriers to the members of the travelling community to accessing mental health facilities? Because as you've said, they are some of the biggest sufferers when it comes to it.
Yeah. There's actually really high barriers, if I could say that, for the traveller community to access mental health services. And also, Brian, around, if you're speaking to somebody and they don't understand what you're saying or don't understand your community, well, then you feel like you're getting nowhere, really, So I believe that many traveller people should be trained up as counsellors as well. We have the Traveller Counselling Service, who are traveller cultural appropriate. We have the Traveller Mental Health Network, and I'm also a member of the National Traveller Mental Health Network. And again, what can Fianna Fáil and other parties do to support travellers' mental health is to implement the Traveller Action Plan, Mental Health Action Plan that they've said that they would implement. The three parties did. Now, to date, I've met with ministers, I've met with, and there's no big, I personally don't see a major big support in getting a Traveller Pacific action plan around mental health, and I think it's vital that we do. And I've met with Minister Butler around implementing a Traveller action plan around mental health, and we're in discussions around that at the moment, and I hope that does happen. Basically, Brian, the answers are already there. It's not about recreating the wheel, it's about getting support to be able to implement it, and funding and stuff. So it is like, you know, I've had an experience myself with some members of my community who suffered with mental health issues, where I got a phone call during the last lockdown, a young Traveller man telling me he wanted to throw himself off a bridge, you know, and I got him support by the local, the Traveller Counselling Service. A young man in Dublin, very, very sick with his mental health, and basically his family was trying to get him get some psychiatric support in a hospital, and basically the young man still never got any of those supports, you know. So it's really about being like, you know, if this was in the general population, it would be seen as a crisis. And I think it's very important that we say this, that it will be seen as a mental health crisis, because it's just travellers, it's not seen as a mental health crisis. But I do know that there's good political will towards the Traveller community, I will say that, and really from Fianna Fáil over the last few years, and we all have to be very clear around that. So look, it's about building up those relationships, it's about being around those tables, and hopefully by the end of next year, by the spring of next year, hopefully we'll see an action mental health plan for the Traveller community.
Absolutely. Well, we are the party of an Ireland for all, so I'd hope we'd always put our money where our mouth is on that current issue. And I'll absolutely talk to our COB about putting more weight behind those initiatives. We do have our over liaison, Chris O'Sullivan, who's our representative at the parliamentary party, so I'm sure he can raise the issue on our behalf just to get that fast tracked. Just, I suppose, we're going to finish it up now soon, Eileen. I don't want to be taking up too much more of your time. So if you have any closing remarks for anyone out there who maybe feels a bit unclear on the travelling community, hasn't had as much exposure to the travelling community, what would you say to those people to hopefully break down barriers and get people understanding the travelling community a bit better?
Like, for me, Brian, I'd always use a quote that was from my mother, you know, and it's nobody knows the shoes cutting them, only the person that's wearing them. And when you're every single day going through discrimination, racism, not being rejected in the world, seeing your loved ones being rejected, experience rejection all of the time, well, that does has a dramatic impact on you, you know. And many people has never met a member of the Traveller community, unfortunately. And look, I've had a negative experience with the settled community. Anytime I turn on the news, there's something negative that's around the general population. But we can't stigmatize everybody the same, you know, that kind of way. And it's about meeting individuals within the community. And again, we're not looking for a hand, like Traveller community, you're not looking for handouts, you know, we're looking for hand-ups. And I really want people to understand that. And you know, it's no harm in saying hello. Not every member of the Traveller community are violent or aggressive people. And you know, it's like, from my experience of being a member of the Traveller community, it's the most thoughtful, probably the most religious group within Irish society, you know, and that would go to mass all of the time, that would have very strong religious values, that would really protect and have that sense of close community, of minding each other as well, you know. So I think it's really about listening to people, and to, like, you know, don't purposely hurt any other person. And you know, like, I genuinely believe we're all prejudiced, and we're allowed to be prejudiced, but we're not allowed to go around hurting people, you know. And just say, Brian, to you and to everybody who's watching today's Zoom, just to say that this is a great starting point, and to congratulate you and your team for inviting myself around this table, because you know, you've been the first young group that's invited me around to have a discussion around the inequalities that impact on the traveller community. So I'd like to congratulate you on that, and to say that this meeting here is a starting point, and the people from Fianna Fáil, young members of Fianna Fáil, all they have to do is pick up the phone and give me a shout, because for me, I love people who are open, who are willing to learn, and we don't have to agree on everything, but it's about finding that common ground, and I believe that we can do that together.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Eileen. We really appreciate your time, and we'll definitely we'll attach your social medias and contact details, and hopefully we'll get working towards an Ireland for all and a better tomorrow for the travelling community in Ireland.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much.